Hello again and welcome to the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, just outside Montreal. It's the 7th race of the 2011 season and the 48th running of the Canadian Grand Prix. We had Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull in pole position, Alonso and Massa in the Ferraris in second and third, Vettel's teammate Webber in 4th place, Lewis Hamilton was 5th in the McLaren, Nico Rosberg starting 6th in the Mercedes, and Jenson Button in the other McLaren was starting in the 7th. Now, there was heavy rain at the start of the race, and the race would start under the safety car, and the safety car would basically just lead them around, and as they left, this was the first racing lap. So laps were being counted under the safety car towards the race. And the safety car would circulate here for 4 laps before they felt it was safe enough to get going and get underway. Everyone starting here on the wet weather tires. They had the option of coming in and changing to inters as the track dried, or slicks if they wanted to. But everybody at the start of the race was on the full wet tire.
There is no overtaking until they get to the first safety car line, which is there, and that is why Alonso fancied a bit of a look, and Vettel's gone too deep into the corner. Alonso's right behind him still, so they could overtake into that final corner, and Vettel knew that, but so did Alonso. Alonso goes to the right. Vettel has the turning point to the corner though, and behind him we got a McLaren right up alongside, and he touched. Webber is round, Mark Webber, and that's Lewis Hamilton. So Mark Webber keeps the engine running. He'll fall almost to the back of the field. And this is a replay then from on board with Lewis Hamilton. So Mark Webber
gave him space.
He gave him space. You're absolutely right. He gave him space, and then Lewis just sort of understeered into him, didn't he?
So Lewis and Mark Webber getting a bit tangled there. Lewis was back on track though, and it was the Mercedes-Benz powered cars. The 2 Mercs and the 2 McLarens were fighting with each other. Schumacher got past Button. Hamilton got a run on Button. Button was trying to go around the outside of Schumacher. It had settled down with Rosberg, Schumacher, Button and Hamilton, as Vettel, even the race leader, was finding it difficult. He took a shortcut across the grass. And Hamilton was closing in on Jenson Button, who was just beginning to slip back. And then Hamilton got so much better drive out of the final chicane onto the main straight. And poor Jenson didn't see him in the mirrors, ended up putting him into the wall. Jenson apologized for that one afterwards, said he just could not see anything in his mirrors. Lewis tried to get going and limp back to the pits, but he didn't make it. It was his race over.
Forget the replay.
So Lewis comes off the last chicane much faster. Jenson's making his way on what is the normal line, and it was the merest of touch, wasn't it?
But Button, let's bring out the safety car. Button made it into the pits. He changed to the intermediate tires. Some of the drivers thought perhaps it was starting to dry up a little bit. Alonso and Nico Rosberg were also pitting for intermediate tires, and under the safety car, Jenson Button would get a drive-through penalty for speeding behind the safety car. He was going too fast in trying to catch the safety car up. And with Alonso and Nico on the inters, this put Massa and Kobayashi up into 2nd and 3rd place. But then on lap 19, a massive downpour just hit the circuit. And this pretty much stranded the guys on the intermediate tires. They were slipping and sliding all over the place. They were having trouble just making it down the back straight on the way back to the pits. So everybody on the inters, Alonso, luckily he was close to his pit. He didn't lose too much time, but he pitted for full wet tires, as did Button. It was so wet the safety car came out. So the Inter guys, they had to do this extra stop, dropped them all the way back down the field again. And the safety car was out. So Vettel and the other race leaders all decided to pit just to put on a fresh set of the full wet tire. They had so much time in the pocket,
they could afford to do so. Vettel would retain the lead here because Massa and Webber would also pit. And then the race was suspended. And the cars returned to just stand on the grid. And they would stand there for 2 hours. Over 2 hours, in fact. Waiting for the track conditions to clear up a little bit so that they could go racing again, which they did. And the safety car again, they would pretty much the same as the start of the race. All these laps behind the safety car would count. And Martin Brundle got so bored during this stage of watching cars go round and round, he started giving the weather report.
Still, I don't see safety car in this lap. I see track temperature 17 degrees centigrade, air temperature 18 degrees centigrade, humidity 89%, and the pressure 1,007 millibars. And we see an increasingly drying track. Come on, get that safety car in the pit lane. Let's see what these drivers have got to show us.
So at the restart, it was Vettel leading from Kobayashi and Massa as they crossed the safety car line and into the final chicane. Guys were already getting a bit racy at the back, trying to work their way through. And Kamui Kobayashi over here, Massa wanted through, but Kobayashi, he was up there fighting for second place in a Sauber, and he was not going to go easy. He fought for his position. Great job. Some of the guys started pitting again for the intermediate tyres. The track had dried up so much under the safety car. Michael Schumacher, he led a queue of cars into the pits. They all pitted for the intermediates. And the very next lap, in came Jenson Button again. So now for Jenson, we have his 4th trip to pit lane, one of those being a drive-through penalty, and back onto the inters for Jenson, and hopefully this would be the right choice this time. But he would rejoin way down the field. But obviously on the inters, these guys ahead, if the track did dry up, they would all have to pit. And Jenson continued along his way. The guys in front were pretty slow. The guys in front on the full wet tyres, they were a bit slower than the guys on inters, and the Schumacher and the rest were picking their way through the traffic. Not really backmarker traffic. This was all passing for position. But on intermediate tyres, these guys are a lot better off. And then they got it wrong there, Sutil, and gifted 2 positions to Michael Schumacher. And then Alonso was found beached up on the curb. And this would bring out the safety car yet again. And then we saw the reason why. Jenson Button, he had a puncture.
Now, let's have a look at this. So, yes, it was Button up the inside of Alonso. Alonso didn't want to yield. And contact.
Well,
that's Jenson's 2nd contact of the afternoon.
Maybe a bit naughty there from Jenson. But he was back in the pits and changed the tyres. Another set of intermediates for him. Bit of a slow stop. Again, it was under the safety car, so he didn't lose out too much. Massa and Kobayashi were still at it, and this time they got a bit tangled up. And again, Michael Schumacher decided, okay, I'll go past both of you. There's twice in this race that Michael just drove past 2 cars. Lap 52, and Button was in the pits for the final time, thank goodness, but this time he had fitted slick tyres. The track was dry enough. Now the dry line was pretty dry. A wet line was wet. And Massa found out he got off that dry line into the wet and into the barrier, so he would have to pit again to change his front wing. But the guys on slick tyres now were chasing down the guys on the inters, and it was all getting a bit racy. It was still a bit tricky though. Shortcuts across the grass happening, actually costing positions. Vettel decided on lap 53 he would pit, and he would put on the slick tyres. You can see pit lane is still very, very wet. So you didn't want to get it offline here. Now, Webber, he was stuck behind Michael Schumacher. And Michael, the wily old fox, he was not going to let Webber through. Not a chance. You know what Michael Schumacher's like when he's in front. Doesn't matter what position you're really fighting for. This was the second place, but it didn't matter. No one was going to take it from him. Hardfelt then got on the gas a bit too early, damaged his front wing, and then it broke off, and he drove over it and managed to park the car in the escape road. You see, a bit of a scary moment there. When the front wheels lift off, you've got no brakes, no control. And so we had a safety car again to remove debris. And the marshal was, I don't know, ice skating. Oh, goodness. What a doofus. Luckily, he wasn't hurt. And they managed to get the mess cleared up. And finally, with 10 laps to go, it was time to go racing again. With the field bunched up, Schumacher smelt a win here, and Vettel was fending off his childhood hero. Now Vettel would get through that final chicane and start to pull away from Michael's Merc. DRS was enabled by now, and Webber was still looking for a way past Schumacher. He missed the corner here, he got onto the wet, he didn't get good drive out, and Button was able to swoop around and nick second place off Mark. You can see he got the tail out of shape. Button, instant reaction, and then Button chased down Schumacher, opened the rear wing, and just breezed past him. And Button was up into second place, and this left Webber. He managed to get past Michael in the DRS on the back straight with just 2 laps to go. And then our final lap here, these guys were gunning it. They were pushing hard. Button was pushing Vettel hard, and Vettel made a mistake. He ran it a bit wide. He got onto the wet. He didn't spin around. He held it. He managed to keep going. Because he just got out onto that wet, and shows how treacherous it was out there. But Vettel, he scooped it up and carried on going. But Button was through on the final lap of the race to win with 5 pit stops and a drive-through penalty, 6 trips to pit lane. The action wasn't over yet. There was a big dice on for 5th place, with Massa still trying to get past Kobayashi. He got him into the chicane here, followed him, popped the DRS open. They sprinted to the line, and Massa got it right at the end there. Oh, what a great Grand Prix. 6 safety cars, 6 pit stops, or trips to pit lane, I should say, from Jenson Button. He spent a total of 2 minutes and 21 seconds in pit lane. And if you take the average speed of this Grand Prix from the green light to the checkered flag, including the stoppage, the average pace, average speed, 74 kilometers, which is 45 miles an hour. A completely insane race. And yeah, a fun one to watch. So that's it for today's video, guys. Until the next one, have a good time all the time.